we had this course in college to like prep you for co-op, and I made my resume with that. That was the first time I ever made a resume and a cover letter, and I just went on Indeed and I applied to like 500 positions, and I didn't even hear back.
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel Immigrant, where you get to know about different career options from the students and professionals who share their experience with those of you who are planning to study or work in Canada. In today's video, we have Ramneet Brar, who will walk us through her journey from being an international student to all the way in establishing a successful career in Canada. The video will circle around three main topics: the challenges faced by an international student, stepping into professional world, and finally applying for a permanent residency. I hope you guys will find it helpful. So without any further ado, let's begin. Thank you, Ramneet, for joining in. Before we dive into the questions that I have for you, if you can quickly introduce yourself to our viewers.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ramneet Brar, and I am working with KPMG as a senior tax consultant. I came to Canada 5 years ago as an international student. And after doing my accounting diploma in George Brown and doing 2 co-ops with KPMG, this is where I am today. And on the side of that, I'm also the CGO at Empower, which is an organization helping international students land their dream roles. So that is about me, and I live in Toronto, Canada. So that is where I'm situated, and I'm super excited to be here and share my journey with you all.
Awesome. So to start it off, my first question is, what were some of the challenges that you faced as an international student, considering that you came at a very young age, without any a degree or any sort of work experience. So what were some of the challenges as an international student?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I was very young when I came. I came right out of my grade 12, so I was about 18 at that time. And I think that age in itself is very difficult for anyone. You're kind of transitioning from high school to like slash adult slash like college life, and then moving here. So I think the first biggest challenge was being homesick because, of course, I left my parents, left that cushion life and moved here and had to do everything from cooking, cleaning, and starting to work. So I think that in itself, adulting, I guess, was very hard, and doing it alone is not that easy. I think the second part of it was just like finding your place again, because back home I was in the same high school, same city
Right.
all my life, so I had a system, I had friends, I was something there. But then moving here and kind of have to, like, you have to build yourself again. So I felt very alienated. I think for the first year I didn't settle in at all. I didn't have much friends. I couldn't relate to anyone around me. And I was in a college with a lot of Canadian students, so I didn't really have a big Indian community here either. So yeah, it took me a lot of time to kind of figure out my place and actually start to feel like this is somewhere I could live. But for that 1 year, it was just constant questioning yourself every day that, do I really want to do this? Do I want to go back, or can I like survive here? And I think the third one actually started when I was looking for a job, and I actually started entering the Canadian industry. And also because I came with no prior experience. I've never worked in my life. To actually go through the interview process and to put myself out there, and I actually started, having conversations with a lot of potential employers, and there was just a whole ton of like people who were ready to, use you in the like whatever way they can and take advantage of your situation because you're
Right.
so young and so fresh. So I think it took a lot of time to kind of like adult into that, and actually figure out my place in the professional industry and actually find a job. So I think that those three were like my major hurdles when I can.
Great. So let's talk about the transition now from after when you graduated to and when you stepped into the professional world. And in the separate video, we will definitely discuss the tips and techniques that helped you to land a job. And feel free to you can also discuss about the wonderful initiative that you have, Empower. So for now, if you can tell us how difficult was it for you to land a job without any prior work experience, or you can say Canadian work experience.
It was Not easy. I would say I think everything is difficult, but I would like to like it wasn't easy for sure. So what to give a little bit background, I came into a program which had two work terms, so I had to find a co-op. And I had to start looking for a co-op after my third semester. So I was just a year in Canada, and that's where I had to start looking for jobs and internships. So I think the advantage I had at that point was that because it's an internship, they expect you to come with no experience, right? So I was a little bit advantage at a place of advantage with that side because I wasn't competing against people who have had experience, but at the same time I lacked quite a bit of skill set because again I had never worked, and I did have a job in as a cashier in fast food, but that was just to pay bills. So I think the first 6 months it was just rejections. I didn't even land an interview. I didn't even get a chance to actually know what the job search process is because we had this course in college to like prep you for co-op, and I made my resume with that. That was the first time I ever made a resume and a cover letter, and I just went on Indeed and I applied to like 500 positions, and I didn't even hear back, and I started to think maybe something is wrong, like, and then people around you, I think it's just in general the community here tells you that, oh, the jobs are not for international students, they only want to hire the domestic students. So I somehow started to kind of like, I guess, subconsciously accept that that is it and maybe that is the problem. So like I think the only thing that worked at that point were like I shifted myself from a like listening to them to making actually talking to the students on campus, because I think college has a very um, good mix of people who come with experience. So I started talking to them who have already had experience. And also in George Brown, we had a lot of students who were transitioning from George Brown to Ryerson University. There were a lot of domestic students and they had much more information than we had, right? So I started hanging out with them, listening to them, and I went and I met a friend. Her name is Christina, and we started to go to interviews together. We would go to like networking events and mass interviews, and she was actually who started conditioning me into how to talk and what to say and things like that. And then I met my mentor, who was an HR professor, but he had worked in the industry for like 30 years. So I took his class, and I was talking to him, and I was like sharing that I've been looking for a job for past 6 months and I'm not landing anywhere, and I'm so desperate to get a co-op because I had to do two
Right.
co-ops to graduate. So if I couldn't do a co-op, I wouldn't graduate. So he was the one who really nurtured me, told me how to make a resume, how to talk in interviews, how to answer questions. And after his guidance and taking a semester with him, I landed first a part-time job with RBC, and then I used that job to apply at KPMG, where I'm currently at. And they had a co-op program for 4 months. So they were only looking for students, and they had a partnership with George Brown. So I was able to apply through that, and using my professor's guidance, I only applied to like three jobs, including my KPMG job. I got interview for all three of them, and I was able to land this job and ultimately turn it into my full-time job. So I did go through a huge phase of like failures, but I think once I shifted my mindset and actually started listening to useful advices and not just naysayers who just say what they have listened from others or experienced themselves, like some authentic advice which had some backup, it turned out to be best. And I think after using the right advice, it only took me a month to land the right job. So I think that's where I realized the importance of mentorship, and how to actually do job search in Canada.
That's amazing. And I like the point where you mentioned about the mindset, and you have to have patience as well, right? So taking from there, Ramneet, like first we can discuss the international student, then the professional life, and then now let's jump into the PR. A lot of viewers we're watching right now. They're curious to know how was the process for you. How did you file your PR in context with your the education that you had? Because again, you came after a 12th grade, as you mentioned. So how was the process? If you want to like, describe that as well.
Yeah, I think once I kind of went through the job search process and I realized the value of right advice, I stopped relying on everybody's information of what they
Mhm.
say, and I knew for a fact that I wanted to do it myself.
Right.
So I knew I wouldn't go to a lawyer and pay like $3,000 because I wasn't going through the LMIA route, right? So I started reading everything on the Canadian immigration website. And because my sister had went through immigration herself, but she used a lawyer, so I guess I piggybacked on her
Uh-huh.
information, and I had a few friends who did it themselves as well. So I, gathered the information from the right sources. So I went through express entry, and I went through the Canadian experience class, because my job at KPMG came under the NOC code um, zero, if I'm right, or whatever is the accountant. I can tell the NOC code, which is 1111. That is the NOC code for accountants. I think it comes under zero. So I qualified under the Canadian experience class. And because my sister had PR, so I got
Right.
15 points for her. But I think my biggest two hurdles were that A, I didn't have any other education in India, so I only had 2 years of Canadian
Right.
education. So my points for education were subpar, but then I realized that the maximum points for education I could jump was 30 points. Like if I
Mhm.
did a bachelor's, I would just increase 30 points, right? But my score at that point was somewhere around 400. So then what I did was I did two things. So first, I applied my PR after 2 years of experience rather than one. I know a lot of people apply after one, but I knew myself I had to do 2 years, just because I had to increase my score from that. But the fact was, because I was a co op and I landed my job, so I transitioned from co op to full time right after, so I didn't have any gap. So the moment I started my work permit, I already had the full time job I needed to use for my PR. So I didn't waste any time. And because I was already the staff accountant, I was coming under the NOC 1111. So I knew my points would be good as long as I finished 2 years. So I finished 2 years, and that's when I applied. And the second thing was I maxed out on my language score. I think people undermine IELTS so much. Like you can get up to 150 points in language.
Right.
So I had to give my IELTS test 4 times. That's what I did because I was able to get like 9 or 8.5 in everything, but just writing. And
Mhm.
writing is not easy to score. And again, for the first two times, I was like, I've done IELTS in India. I think I have a command over my language. And I just went and I gave it. And then I realized both of time I was at 6.5 in writing. So, again, something is wrong and I need to fix this. So I took like this online course. I think it's called like the English Academy. There are people in UK who do this online course. It's free. So I took their course in writing, and I can provide you the link that you can mention in the bio. I took their course in writing, and after that, I gave my IELTS, and I was able to score, I think, 7 or 7.5. So I maxed out my English score. So that boosted my scores quite a bit. 15 points for my sister's PR, and then 2 years of work experience.
If you had three options to move to Canada, the first would be, let's say, coming after high school. Second, coming after a high degree, and the third is moving after some sort of personal professional work experience. So, what would you recommend to someone who's still in that planning phase?